it already ended the world and we're living inside a black hole, to paranormal activity, to new dimensions.
I like that one. It already ended, but it ended and it restarted so fast we're not even aware of it. Today we're going to be looking at another one of Cleo Abram's videos. Specifically, did we do it? What's really happening at CERN? Well, smashing really small things. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tyler Folse. I'm a nuclear engineer with a little over 10 years of experience in the commercial nuclear power industry. From engineering to operations to emergency response. I don't claim to know everything there is nuclear, but I can certainly share some knowledge. Let's check this out.
Okay, ready? Right here, on the border between France and Switzerland, is the biggest science experiment ever built. It's this huge tunnel, over 100 meters underground and 27 kilometers long, running under nearby homes and businesses and farms.
That's
and
cool
inside
vision.
that tunnel, scientists put a long blue tube, big enough to crawl through. And inside that tube, they put two pipes that they keep colder and emptier than outer space. And down those pipes, they fire particles smaller than atoms, in opposite directions, pushing them faster and faster and faster until, when they're almost at the speed of light, they smash together, sending subatomic debris flying off into this massive detector.
The energy released per particle interaction for something like this, the Large Hadron Collider, well, we're several order of magnitudes above what nuclear fission's doing. Nuclear fission is impressive, on the order of 200 million electron volts released per individual fission. But these individual high-energy particles smashing are on the order of trillions of electron volts. So, yeah, there's a lot of energy being put into stuff like this. All in the name of science. It's awesome.
This underground particle smasher took thousands of people from over 100 different countries, $5 billion, and over 30 years to plan and build.
That's par for the course within the nuclear industry, something that takes that long. Though $5 billion is a little low compared to some projects. No, but seriously, it is a cool achievement.
The question was, why? Why do this?
Fair
Why
question.
spend so much money and time to smash particles together in an underground tunnel?
Well, all in the name of advanced technologies and discovery. Better understanding particle interactions at extremely high energies provides more data for nuclear cross-sections. And by cross-sections, I'm referring to the probability of something happening within a nuclear power plant. That something is generally fission. So yeah, that's an important insight for reactor design and safety. So any knowledge we get from this, especially if we intend to build more nuclear power plants at scale, yeah, that's going to help us out. Not to mention the cryogenic technology, plasma behavior. That'll all help with fusion research. And that's just the couple of nuclear applications.
And now, why do so many people say that what we really need to do is build a bigger one?
Future Circular Collider, new particle accelerator,
building a bigger one
in Geneva, Switzerland.
Oh, bigger's better, right? To answer more fundamental questions.
Than 3 times its size and twice as deep.
I'm going all the way to Switzerland, to the particle smasher itself, to understand what's really going on here, and to go on a journey that will forever change.
Of course, there's always conspiracy theorists that think they're going to make some sort of dark matter weapon or whatever. The same thing when the Large Hadron Collider was first constructed.
How I see myself and the world around me.
Fitting for the title of her series, Huge If True, going from Large Hadron Collider to Huge Hadron Collider. I don't think that's actually what they're going to call it.
This is Huge If True. Part of this video is sponsored by Shopify.
-1, please, yeah.
I'm in an elevator on my way down to the giant particle smasher, more scientifically known as the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC. It's inside the biggest and most famous physics lab in the world, CERN. I can't believe I'm here. Getting to visit here is a really big deal. Thousands
Yeah, not many people get to go there. Can't say I've ever been there throughout my career.
of scientists from all around the world gather here to do cutting-edge research about how the universe works.
Then again, I'm an engineer, not a scientist. That's probably why.
Alright, we're in a tunnel now.
Beyond that yellow door is one of the places where particles actually collide. Specifically, this one, the Atlas detector.
Cool. So I guess they're not... I didn't see them cart into a radiological controlled area. It just looks like hard hat with no safety glasses. Interesting. Well, I guess it's not a construction site. The main hazard might just be stuff over in the overhead.
Oh my god. It's beautiful.
That it really is. Yep.
This thing is huge. To give you a sense of scale, just look at it compared to a person.
Look how small they are. Those are people compared to this enormous machine. How did you put this in here?
So we can see from down here that there is a shaft above us. If people have the hobby to build a ship in a bottle, it's a
Yeah, okay, so equipment hatch loads in from the top. Kind of like within reactor containment buildings, there's an equipment hatch that can be opened that is loaded in during an outage. Though, within a nuclear power plant, they have strict pressure and sealing requirements because it's basically an airlock.
exactly the same way of constructing. You have to lower it in and then construct it in place.
I'm so amazed.
Sort
that
of
people built
modularly.
This giant underground detector is where those particles finally collide after being sped up close to the speed of light around that 27-kilometer track.
Where's the
I
collision
like that they're always green in most simulations. That's cool.
happen?
So the collision happens over here. So the detector is symmetrical around the collision point, and so we're at one end of it.
The detector is big.
Basically 360 views so they can see exactly where all the bits and pieces go.
But the actual collider part is very small.
What you can see in the center is the Large Hadron Collider, so you can really see how tiny the beam pipe is.
Yeah, well, you need to get them to collide, and that's still massive considering this is a subatomic particle that they're trying to get to collide. So yeah, you're going to want to make it as small as reasonably possible. I get it.
Each pipe is about the size of your two hands, like this, or about the diameter of an orange, with thousands of magnets running along it that force the particles within that pipe into a space the width of a human hair.
I just accidentally pulled out one of my hairs in order to demonstrate this. Can you see this hair? Okay. Can you see this hair
They're gonna
compared
stick
to
it
the
in there.
scale that we're talking about right now?
That's the size of the space the particles are moving through. But
And all those magnets, electromagnetic force is very powerful, and these are charged particles, so speed them up with quad pole magnets going around a line, get them fast enough that, yeah, you can achieve speeds quite close to the speed of light.
even a human hair is enormous compared to the particles themselves. You already know that atoms and the particles inside of them are very small, but they are so much tinier than most people think. Look at a single strand of your hair. Now imagine that single hair is as big across as the entire Earth is wide. Now, zoom in. The size of a single cell inside of that hair would be like the distance from Paris
That's an
to
interesting
Rome.
visualization.
Now zoom in again. A protein inside that cell would be like 6 soccer fields across. An atom inside that protein would be like 1 school bus across. The nucleus at
We'll
the
have a lot of
center
fun
of
with
that
that.
atom would be like the width of a grain of rice. And the protons
I've heard, and this comes up with nuclear engineering, and I know this is a very American analogy, but it's a baseball field is the atom. And the nucleus would be a mosquito on second base, being towards the center of that. But now I just picture a goofy cartoon mosquito with a baseball glove.
within that nucleus, they'd be like grains of salt. So a proton compared to the width of your hair is like a grain of salt compared to the entire Earth. And that is what scientists are sending flying around inside of this machine. Protons, which are being squeezed by magnets into a space the width of a hair.
Protons being positively charged, lot different than managing neutrons in a nuclear power plant, because neutrons, of course, have no charge. So we don't have super crazy magnets in the reactor. What regulates neutrons, since they're not charged, is what's called a moderator, which is something that slows down the neutrons so they can interact with target nuclei, usually uranium-235, and cause it to fission. Moderators, at least within the US, are often water, but it can also be something like graphite, something with inherent material properties for slowing down neutrons. Because again, magnets, kind of useless at manipulating neutrons.
Is incredible that we can do this. As humans, we experience only a tiny slice of the full scale of reality. But there's so much more. Wait, but hang on. If there's
It's an interesting point she brings this up, because we're kind of mid-sized, if you will, because there's so much stuff much, much smaller than us, but there's also so much stuff much, much bigger than us within the universe. Now, I say mid, I'm not to suggest we're like, you know, medium-sized relative to the universe. I'm just saying there's really far you can look smaller, and there's really far you can look upward, referring to solar systems, galaxies, clusters of galaxies, things of that nature. So they could go pretty far in either direction, which is fascinating.
Sending these tiny little protons down a tunnel 27 kilometers long. How do they get them to actually hit each other? Just think about shooting grains of salt at each other from really, really, really far away. Seriously, think about it. How would you do that?
Yeah.
If you just thought fire tons of salt, that's exactly what they do. They don't just fire 100 or 1,000 protons at each other. They fire 100 billion in bunches in each direction. And when they do that, 100 billion versus 100 billion, guess how many actually collide?
On average, we get about 50 or 60 collisions per crossing.
You heard that.
That's actually a lot. That's just pretty impressive. And you can, mainly because you can guide them in more with these powerful magnetic fields. There's a unit in nuclear engineering for this called the barn. One barn is 10 to the minus 28th power meters squared. It comes from the expression, can't hit the broadside of a barn. So these broadsides are really, really small because we're talking about cross-sectional area of, well, in my field, nuclei. In their field, they're going subatomic, so presumably much, much smaller.
Right, 60. 60 will actually collide, which is why they'll do the whole thing over and over and over again. 30 million times per second. There's approximately 3,000 bunches, each with over 100 billion protons, creating 1 billion collisions per second inside of this massive machine.
Why build this?
Okay, so we have thousands of scientists spending billions of dollars to smash billions of protons in an underground tunnel. But why? Why do all of this in the first place? Well, if you look on the internet, you'll see that there are a lot of theories, from ending the world to creating
Oh, I'm sure there are. Yes.
black holes to it already ended the world and we're living inside a black hole to paranormal activity to new dimensions to hooded figures.
I like that one. It already ended, but it ended and it restarted so fast we're not even aware of it. That's pretty cool.
Performing rituals to summon the devil. That last one was a prank, by the way. No, we are not doing any of that. The truth about what is happening here
there are people that would believe it.
Much harder to explain and much, much cooler. So strap in, because it's time to break your brain. When scientists smash these protons together, we get a glimpse at what might have happened close to the start of our universe, the Big Bang. That's because the collisions release an enormous amount of energy for how small protons are. But in the grand scheme of things, each collision is still less than the total energy of a hand clap. But a very smart person figured out that energy and mass are related. So,
but a hand clap is ginormous, because her previous analogy, grains of sand from planet to planet, based on that scale, a hand clap's more powerful than nuclear weapons.
When these protons collide at incredibly fast speeds, releasing a ton of energy, that energy can turn into physical mass, which is crazy. And here's the kicker. If the energy is high enough, it can turn into mysterious or unknown particles, more of the building blocks of our universe, which we really want to know about to use that knowledge to improve the world today. Or
strange matter, basically a hypothetical, ultra-dense neutron star material, called such because it's made out of strange quarks. Strange in that they decay randomly, which is interesting. Not sure if they actually exist, though.
Or to just satisfy our own curiosity. But those special mystery particles, they only exist for an instant, before they turn back into more everyday particles that we see all the time, that then fly outward towards sensors that record exactly where they hit. So what scientists actually see is more like a crime scene. They can see where the particles hit the sensors, but then they need to work backward using very complex physics to reverse engineer what happened at the moment of collision and what mystery particles could have been there. And
that's actually a really good way of explaining that. Yeah, you just trace it backwards.
That sounds hard. Yeah, you're right. But important.
We're not just doing this for fun, let's smash things together. And we do like it. It's fun.
Oh, you know you are.
Well, we do it because we have huge, huge questions. The idea with particle physics is to try to understand the fabric of the universe. So, you divide something, you divide it again, until you finally get to something you can't divide anymore. The elementary particles.
That's what they're studying in these collisions. Elementary particles, the building blocks of our universe.
Those are the normal quarks.
We know a lot of them already. You might recognize some, like electrons or photons, which give us light. We know about all of these elementary particles thanks to brilliant people doing extremely complex math and decades of experimentation to prove that math actually predicts the real world. That math looks like this. This is a beautiful description of how we as humans think the world around us works. It's called the Standard Model.
We can understand a lot about our universe.
Based on what we currently know, sure.
Where we're going, what we're made of. It's pure research to try to understand our universe.
One reason that they wanted to build the Large Hadron Collider specifically is that the Standard Model predicted that there should be another particle, a mystery particle, likely present near the beginning of our universe that no one had ever actually detected. They called it the Higgs boson, or more sensationally, the God particle. The Standard Model seemed to suggest that this God particle was of vital importance to universal existence.
Okay, sure, and build a bigger one so you can just you can measure the Higgs bosons with an extra layer of precision to understand it better.
Because, and here's where my brain starts to break a little bit, it would confirm the existence of an underlying field that gives other particles mass. In other words, this God particle would help us understand why everything you and I feel exists. Basically, why stuff exists.
So the interesting thing about the Higgs field is it's scalar, meaning it has the same value everywhere, but can vary in strength over time and space, and it exists uniformly. Contrast that to, say, gravitational fields, so it implies that this mass generation is consistent. Again, according to this Standard Model and its underlying assumptions, which we're trying to validate by building an even bigger particle smashy thingy.
It was a big mystery, and this underlying field was our best mathematical explanation. And observing the Higgs boson, the particle related to this field, would help to prove it. The only problem was that to do that, we needed to get enough energy in one place to create it, like from smashing two protons together at nearly the speed of light. And that is one big reason to build the Large Hadron Collider. So, they built it. And after they finished, thousands of scientists spent 2 more years collecting data at 2 different detectors until finally they were sure enough to announce to the world they did it. They reliably created the Higgs boson, something that no one had ever detected before, proving a truth about our universe that had before.
I remember hearing about this in the early 2010s and all the conspiracy theories, but it's just people wanting to learn more about the universe.
Been a mystery. And that proof looked like this. Yep, it's a bump on a chart. Think about how much work went into seeing
bump on a chart's a big deal.
That bump on that chart. Like, that's it? Yeah, it's awesome. Through math, scientists predicted that if the Higgs boson exists, when we smash particles together, we should see a bump. And there it is.
There was literally a bump. There were more particles being produced at that energy.
The math was right.
Nice.
This confirmation didn't immediately change the world for people like you and me, but it showed us that as a species, we're
not immediately, but it was a breath of fresh air after Fukushima happened in 2011. That a couple of years after more advanced particle physics being discovered, and I don't know, it made me feel a little bit better about the state of nuclear at the time.
On the right track. We're never gonna know the impact of discovering any single building block of reality. When Sir Isaac Newton revealed the motion of our moon and our planets, he couldn't have possibly imagined there would be humans on the moon nearly 300 years later. The same is true of our discoveries today. That's the point of all of this. We discover the building blocks now so that our children can build with them later in ways that we can't possibly imagine.
I don't know what understanding the Higgs boson is really going to do to change the way that we live, but in 20, 30, 50 years, the better that we understand how these particles work, the more we can create technologies that...
You never know. The first neutron was discovered in 1932. First nuclear reactor was constructed in 1942, and the first commercial nuclear power plant was built in 1957. So who knows what we could do with some Higgs bosons.
Change our lives.
And the Higgs boson was by no means the only thing the Large Hadron Collider has uncovered. It has shaped our understanding of the way that elementary particles interact and combine, and put our theories about the world to the test, over and over and over again.
Well, these sound effects.
But now, some scientists argue that we might have reached a limit on what we can learn from this collider. And there's still so much that we don't know about the universe. So, some scientists argue that now what we need to do is build a much, much bigger one. That's the big debate happening right now.
There's things where
more smash, more energy, more data points.
Big holes in our understanding of the universe. We have measured really clearly that there's something out there that only acts through gravitation as far as we can tell.
He's talking about dark matter.
Invisible matter would have been a better name. Doesn't matter. It doesn't,
Yeah, dark matter sounds kind of sinister, and that's usually the way it shows up in a lot of video games.
Send anything out that we can see with our eyes, but it affects gravitationally, and it makes a big difference.
We know this dark matter is there because it impacts things that we can see, like the way light visibly bends as it passes galaxies. Through those effects, we can calculate dark matter accounts.
But yeah, the LHC hasn't shown direct evidence yet, but make it bigger. Maybe.
For 27% of our universe. Could a bigger collider help us learn about it? We don't really know.
Nobody is guaranteeing it will find dark matter.
If it doesn't work, make an even bigger collider.
It might answer something completely different. It might pose new questions. Maybe we'll find something we had no idea was there, and we need to start working on it now.
Does it have a name? What?
It has a horrible name. It's a horrible name. It's called the FCC.
Ooh, the other FCC might censor you on that one.
The Future Circular Collider, which of course you have to change after you've built it.
That's true.
CERN estimates that building this new
I don't know. You could be like the new course at St. Andrews that was built in 1895, and people still call it the new course. Of course, the old course there was even older, so make of that what you will.
collider would cost roughly $17 billion.
Exactly.
And instead of a 27-kilometer loop, it would be 100. But not everyone thinks that this is worth it. They argue that the Large Hadron Collider has fallen short of what some hoped that it would achieve.
On top of that, some predictions seem to suggest we'd need even more energy than this.
Well, yeah, power it with nuclear power plants. No, power it with nuclear fusion reactors and see if we can get nuclear fusion before building this huge Hadron Collider. I'm just going to keep calling it that.
New, bigger collider would have in order to produce anything truly new.
I think there's no need to overpromise. We don't really know, but that's not a reason not to try. The byproduct of all of the pure science done at CERN has already—
I want to hear that before the investors meeting for this. We don't really know what your money's going to do, but we're going to try it. It's awesome.
Resulted in new therapies for cancer treatments, better medical imaging, more efficient electric cars, more sensitive radiation detectors that we now use in space, and
yeah, energy efficiency. This could drive more investment in the ever-growing research of superconducting magnets, which overlaps with fusion technology. So yeah, invest in both of them simultaneously. Not to mention, like she said, that would help with medical imaging systems and radiation detection systems as well.
my favorite, a new way for scientists to communicate, now called the World Wide Web. All of that and more came from work done at CERN. We don't know what we'll come up with
At CERN, the Large Hadron Collider's old, but not that old.
next. Just imagine for a second what we could do if we had a better, deeper understanding of what gives things—
Ooh, teleporters? There might be some philosophical concerns there. Does it actually kill you and then you're like reborn? I wonder about that.
mass. The future always sounds like sci-fi until we build it.
The futuristic world of
I am not at all
2015.
qualified to figure out if this specific collider is what we should build.
And there are other ideas out there, like a muon collider and a linear collider. There's a proposal for a very powerful collider built in China.
That could actually be some motivation right there to compete with the one in China. I can see this coalition putting resources around that, but not to the same level as, say, during the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union. I don't think we're quite there anymore.
But we won't know what's possible without spending on this kind of pure research.
And what's embarrassing is for Europe, they still spend twice as much on defense. The US spends 10 times as much on defense.
Not going to get into politics here, but I don't know. People might value more on defense than something that you can't, that's a little bit less tangible technologies where the incremental gap just isn't as well communicated to the general public than something like defense, which a lot of people are, at least within the West, particularly the US, aren't as hesitant about spending money on. Again, for better or for worse. Anyway, just make of that what you will.
You can argue we need to do that right now, and that can very well be true. But we need to get to a world that's better than that.
It would be reasonable to say, hey, maybe we should spend this money on other...
This guy's a little idealistic, but you kind of have to be in this field, and I can appreciate that. I am too.
Research that would apply more directly to improving people's lives right now, today. But is that a real choice?
That's a false choice. Fundamental research is essential to be able to do any of that applied research. It'd be like saying, okay, we're going to have universities and maybe secondary education, but we're going to cut out elementary school and no kindergarten. I feel that we're the kindergarten. We're the very, very basics.
The basic particles, sure. The problem is, well, for one, this isn't taught in kindergarten. Well, that would be cool if it was. I bet there's a way to explain it to a 5-year-old. Really big machines smash really small things, so we learn more about small things within the universe. Yeah, I think that's it.
Have to have all of it.
We have come so far in our understanding of the universe, but there is so much left to learn. Like, what's all that extra stuff that we can't see? And where did we come from? And what's coming next? And I think most importantly, while we're here, what we spend our time on shows who we are. If aliens come to Earth one day and they look at what we have built, I would want them to see enormous monuments dedicated to knowledge. I would want them to understand through what we have built.
That's an interesting thought. If the aliens were to show up, what would they think of us, and how would they judge us? Like in The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original one, less so the remake.
That we are a species who seeks to learn and tries to do better and aches to find where we belong in a universe that we can barely understand. I would want them to see that, yes, we are limited. And
I think as we're learning more, we're realizing how little we really understand. And that's really cool.
yes, we have conflict. And yes, we can only glimpse such a tiny slice of the full scale of reality. But man, we try so hard. And that is something that we can all be very proud of, because the effort that we put in today can lead to a world we can't even imagine.
Fully understand the logic, and again, my push for investing in nuclear, though it's more tangible and the technology exists in that regard, versus this could easily turn, a larger particle accelerator could easily turn into a pie in the sky thing. I think scientists and engineers need to get a little bit better at explaining something like this to investors, but I'm all for the advancement of knowledge, and I really appreciate the optimistic tone of this video. Thanks so much for the request, and thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.